Yesterday was Liberation Day, and Donald Trump put tariffs on just about everything. We're going to break this down and talk about the left and the right's perspective on this and try to figure out what all this means. Starting with the basics, Trump unveiled his comprehensive tariff strategy aimed at addressing what he calls unfair trade practices with trading partners. The plan introduces a universal 10% tariff on all imports, with additional reciprocal tariffs targeting specific countries based on existing trade imbalances. Notable tariffs include a 34% tariff on Chinese goods, 20% on European imports, and 25% on foreign-made automobiles. Now, this announcement has sparked significant drops in global financial markets. The Dow fell more than 1,500 points, the S&P was almost 4% lower, and the Nasdaq sank almost 5%. So let's talk about the left's perspective. The left is generally critical of Trump's tariffs, and they view him as a reckless escalation of protectionism that risks igniting global trade wars and harming both U.S. consumers and businesses. They argue that broad measures will lead to increased consumer prices, disrupt supply chains, and potentially trigger a recession. They also believe that the tariffs strain relationships with key allies and undermine international cooperation. While mainstream Democratic position is critical of the tariffs, not all are opposed. Representative Jared Golden did offer cautious support for Trump and his baseline 10% tariff, calling it a good start for erasing an unsustainable trade deficit. And some progressive economists argue that if implemented with equity and labor in mind, that tariffs can protect domestic industries and raise global labor standards. But generally, the left is not in support of these tariffs. Now, looking at the right's perspective, supporters on the right see the tariffs as a bold move to rectify long-standing trade imbalances and protect American industries. They believe reciprocal tariffs will compel trading partners to lower their barriers, ultimately benefiting U.S. manufacturers and workers. This perspective believes that the short-term market losses that we're seeing are really a necessary price for long-term economic sovereignty and revitalizing domestic production. However, not all Republicans are in agreement on all of these tariffs. 4 Republican senators joined Democrats in a 51-48 Senate vote to pass a resolution opposing the tariffs on Canadian imports. Senator Rand Paul is one that criticized the tariffs, and he calls them a disaster for trade, emphasizing the potential negative impact on the economy, while others express concern over potential job losses in their state. Now, for the left and the right's perspective, I try to stay as unbiased as possible. Now, talking about the middle ground a little bit here, addressing unfair trade practices is a legitimate concern. The broad application of tariffs carries significant risks, however, including escalating retaliatory measures from trading partners and other unintended economic consequences. The middle ground acknowledges the need for fair trade, but cautions that unilateral tariff impositions likely won't bring the desired outcomes and could really just harm global economic stability. A better approach involves targeted measures, multilateral negotiations, and collaboration with international allies to address trade disparities without resorting to broad protectionist policies. Now, if you like this content, please follow and subscribe. We'll be covering all the biggest news stories, given the left and the right's perspective.